Hello and welcome to a new series, the Infinite Spellbook. In this series, a random spell from the artifact known as the Infinite Spellbook will be chosen and shown to you, starting with a brief excerpt before explaining its origin, how to cast it, and the effects of the spell once cast. Some of these spells may be a simple utility that causes minor effects, whilst others can shake the very foundations of reality. Some of the spells that will be presented may have definable origins, and their creators will be mentioned as such, or rights in regards to the spell belonging to them. Other spells may have no clear origin, such is the nature of the Infinite Spellbook. But for now, let us begin with the first spell chosen to be presented, originating from the worlds of Final Fantasy owned by Square Enix. Let's look at one of the most powerful spells known to exist, the peak of the Flare spell family, Zettaflare. The spell Zettaflare is the embodiment of pure, unbridled power. When invoked, the spellcaster channels the destructive energy of the cosmos itself. The air grows heavy and crackles with raw, primal force. As the spell reaches its peak, the sky is bathed in searing, blinding light, and the ground trembles with the sheer magnitude of the spell's potential. In a cataclysmic explosion, a beam of intense energy erupts from the caster, obliterating anything in its path. Mountains crumble, oceans part, and forests vanish as the devastating force sweeps across the land. The spell's impact is so immense that it leaves behind a scar on the very fabric of reality, a void where nothing can thrive. The Zettaflare spell is a power rarely wielded, as it's said to test to the very limits of endurance. Only those with the strength of will and resilience of body can withstand the aftermaths of such a spell, and its use is often spoken of in whispers, a cautionary tale of untold destruction and irreversible change. Zettaflare is the ultimate version of the Flare spell. Within the worlds of Final Fantasy, Flare is seen as an ultimate spell of fire magic, similar to spells like Holy, Meteor, and Ultima. At its base level, Flare appears as an explosion of flame focused on a single target, but dealing a high amount of damage. A unique feature of the Flare spell is its empowered variant, as with enough power, a caster can unleash greater versions of the spell. It should be noted that for most, it is impossible to cast anything greater than Flare. The spell scales following the Greek prefixes, meaning the next level up is several times stronger than the previous level. This means the next variant of the Flare spell, which is called Dekaflare, is 10 times stronger than Flare. Megaflare is 1,000,000 times stronger than Flare. Gigaflare is 1,000,000,000 times stronger than Flare, and so on. Very few beings are capable of casting up to the Mega Flare level, one of the most notable beings able to do so being Bahamut himself, who uses Mega Flare as a signature ability. Whilst the nature of Bahamut can change in different settings within Final Fantasy, he is most commonly one of the most powerful beings in the world, being close to the level of a god, or outright being one. This makes it interesting that only special variants of him are able to cast a Gigaflare, and when one gathered enough power to cast Terraflare, it unleashed enough power to reset the world of Eorzea. This should put Zettaflare into perspective, as it is 1 septillion times stronger than Flare, and throughout all the versions of Final Fantasy and its spin-offs, we've only seen 4 beings able to cast it, 2 of whom are versions of Bahamut. The first known instance appeared in Bravely Default, used by the boss Aerie. The only reason Aerie is able to cast Zettaflare is because she is being powered by Ouroboros, the god of destruction. Without this empowerment, it would be too great for her to handle. As mentioned, only 2 versions of Bahamut have been able to use Zettaflare, and one of them was non-canon. In a special event in Final Fantasy XIV, Bahamut would charge a Zettaflare, but this instance is not canonical as he actually uses Excerpt in the canon raid. The canon instance comes in Final Fantasy XVI when the Icon version of Bahamut begins to draw in as much power as possible to unleash a Zettaflare. And the final being we've seen cast Zettaflare is...
No! Donald! No!
Each instance of Zettaflare is seen as a display of great power. Yes, even Donald's. When successfully cast, the target is almost certainly obliterated. Only beings of tremendous power and endurance can tank the blow, and not without suffering greater effects. Remember, a charged Terraflare was able to destroy a vast amount of a planet, and that is significantly weaker than Zettaflare. If a being somehow withstands the power of Zettaflare, they are also inflicted with a myriad of status effects. When cast by Aerie, her instance applied every status effect in the game. There is a great cost to this spell due to its raw power. When Donald Duck cast the spell, it nearly killed him, and without the power of Ouroboros, it would have almost certainly killed Aerie. It is highly risky to even try and cast this spell, but if successful, it is almost certain your target will perish. With the origins and history covered, let's look at the spell within the Infinite Spellbook. Zettaflare is a 9th level spell with a casting time of 1 action. It has a casting range of self with a 1000 foot line. The spell requires verbal and somatic components. It also requires a material component, which is a platinum plated dragon scale worth at least 4000 gold, which the spell consumes upon casting. The spell's duration is instantaneous, and it belongs to the Evocation School of Magic. When cast, you fire a concentrated beam of fire hotter than a star. This beam fires out from you in a 1000 foot long and 15 foot wide line in a direction you choose. Each creature in the line must make a Constitution saving throw. The creature has disadvantage if it is fully within the line. On a failed save, the creature takes 30 d12 fire damage and is blinded, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, and poisoned for 1 minute. The creature also gains 4 levels of exhaustion, which doesn't go away after a minute, instead requiring the normal means of removing exhaustion, such as long rests. If the creature succeeds on the saving throw, it takes half as much damage and is only blinded, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, and poisoned until the end of its next turn. The amount of exhaustion gained also decreases to 1 instead of 4. Each condition, other than the exhaustion, can be removed at the same time with a greater restoration. The exhaustion can also be removed but must be targeted separately. A creature killed by this spell is disintegrated along with any non-magical equipment it is wearing or carrying. This spell is so powerful, it can also destroy magical items of rare or lower rarity if it is on a creature as it disintegrates. It also bypasses fire immunity, treating it as fire resistant instead. After casting this spell, you must make a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC with disadvantage, which can't be negated in any way. On a failure, you gain 6 levels of exhaustion, which, if you're using the normal rules of exhaustion, kills you instantly. On a successful save, you only gain 1 level of exhaustion. Zettaflare will almost certainly heavily wound, if not outright slay, anything caught in its path, and those that do survive will be much weaker for it. But with that, we've reached the end of today's video. Before you head off, I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope you managed to get something out of this. The Zettaflare spell is available on D&D Beyond for free, and the link to it is in the description. I hope you all have a great day, and may your dice roll favourably. Goodbye for now.